guys, welcome to Bartlett Lake. We're at a nice winter day out here. We just finished a bad winter storm the last 3 days. It's the coldest it's been in 5 years. We reached temperatures of 30 degrees. The water temperature dropped 4 or 5 degrees, and 4 or 5 degrees isn't too much for you or I, but for these winter bass, lethargic bass, it slows them down so bad that they don't even want to bite. So we thought, my partner Dave thought, this would be a good time to go out and shoot a show. Let's see how good you are, or let's not even say how good, let's just go out and show the people what does it take to catch these winter bass. Now literally, folks, when you look at the screen, the bass are laying so close on the bottom of the lake that they're just blending right into the lake. If I push down scan, I actually can see those fish. But other than that, all you see is just a little bleep down there, and that's it. So today I'm starting out with a jig. Now, I don't know how many we'll catch, but this is just a little 1/2 ounce jig. Yamamoto 301 hula grub. Hey, this is simple for me. I'm just making it real simple for you. That's all. I'm just fishing this real slow, dragging it on the bottom, just banging into the bottom and stuff like that. So let's give it a try. I like fishing this real steep, rocky shoreline we see here, you know. We're at the upper end of Bartlett Lake. I like the rock that we're going to be fishing on right here. David's going to be showing you some of this. So I'm looking at fish on the bottom right here. So let's make a few casts, and then I'll tell you what, a lot of people are saying too, and we'll talk about that a little bit later and show you. I'm just testing the hook to see if it's sharp. It is. So this is an open hook jig. It's a football jig, okay? A lot of people are saying, I don't like fishing that. The reason is they get stuck too much. You don't really get stuck that much, and when you do get stuck, you can go over there and get it off. You just shake it a little bit. Just don't pull it real hard if you want your bait back right away. But I'm going to show you how to Texas rig the jigs also. So we'll try both setups today and see if we can catch a fish. All right, so let's get started. It's been raining up here. You can see it stopped raining, so we waited for a few minutes till the raindrops quit so the camera wouldn't get all wet. But you know, in the wintertime, the important thing is finding the fish, you know. Finding the fish, and if you can find the fish plus the shad, you can catch these fish, all right? But the thing is, you just gotta go slow. You make that cast, I let it hit the bottom, take up my slack, and I'm just sitting there like this, and I just give a little bit of jiggle. I mean, not much at all. I mean, I'm not pulling it like this. Summertime, you can get away with that, where they hop the jig and stuff like that. You literally have to hit these things on the head. Seriously, you know. Whoops. Okay, so I just got hung up. So let me show you how easy it is to get off. If it comes off, you know, if I lose it, I lose it. I just grab another one and tie another one on. So we're gonna go up. That's pretty good. First cast, get stuck. That's why the guys, a lot of guys that I know, they come to our classes at the Bass Pro Shop. They just don't like getting stuck that much. So I will show you the Texas rig jig fishing, and you still can catch fish on that. You just don't, you get stuck about 50% less. But you can see what we're fishing in. Look at the rocks here behind me. That's just all boulders up there, you know. So you want to get behind the jig that you got stuck on and just snap it. Comes right off. There you go. So a lot of times when you get stuck like that, boy, I'll tell you, feel your line just to make sure there's no burrs in there, because the first time you set that, wham, bam, it's gonna happen to you. You're gonna lose the fish. Make sure that jig is sticky. See how that just doesn't move. That just sticks right to my fingernail. So that's what you want, something that stays sharp. A lot of times if you get stuck, take a file and you can just file that off. So with that said, I'm not going to throw this jig right on the shoreline, for the simple fact is they're not on the shoreline. They're out about 12, 15, 18, 20 feet deep, 21. There's tons and tons of fish deep, real deep, 25, 30, 35, 40 feet. But on the last 2-3 weeks through Christmas and stuff, man, I just can't catch them that deep. One day I got one at 39 and I thought, wow, there ought to get some more. Never got another bite in that depth, you know. Got one day at, you know, 29, couple at 31, but so we're gonna do this. We're gonna just, I usually like fishing along here and I usually can catch some fish in here. So I'm not casting up the shore. I'm just gonna make a nice, easy cast. I'm using a medium heavy rod. This is that Patriot from Bass Pro Shop. It's got the nice golf club grips here. It's nice and soft. Johnny Morris reel, you know, it's very smooth. It's hard to backlash this. If a lot of the people I take out guiding, they're afraid of bait casters. They want to use a spinning rod, but I can set this and they don't backlash. So then they get hooked. They use the bait caster and they don't want to use a spinning rod anymore. So, all right. So I just made another cast, folks, and I'm going to tell you how I hold my, everybody asks me, well, how do you hold your reel? Do you hold your finger under the line? What's the deal with that? I like the small little profile reels like this on bait casters. I'm using 12-pound, 14-pound line, okay? I actually hold my rod like this with my left hand, and I'm holding my finger like this. So now if I get a bite, I'm either going to fill it in the rod or I'm going to fill the line here. But I made that cast, and so I'll reel a little bit, and then I'll just let that sit there, and then I'll just kind of move it just a little bit. And then all I do is take up the slack. That's it. Sometimes if I'm not in rock like this, I'll go ahead and just reel real slow like this. And then I'll stop. Slow and stop. Once I get close to the boat, I don't, unless I see fish on the graph, I usually won't fish it unless I see the fish on the graph. Other than that, I'll just throw it up. Now remember, when you guys are fishing, and you'll relate to this, after you make a cast, make sure you follow that line up and keep that tight, because probably about 95% of the time, most of your bites come as soon as you throw your line in the water, or your line hits your bait hits the bottom of the lake. You know, and that's because the fish see it sinking, and they can see 5 times greater than we can. So if I'm looking down, you know, a couple feet, you know, they're looking at 10 feet, that bait coming down, and they'll go up to it as they see that thing sinking down. And then they'll sit there as it's sitting on the bottom, and all I got to do is just twitch it just a little bit, and if it moves like a crawdad, that's when they'll take it as it's sitting, as I move it, and then just let it sit there. See, I'm just bumping across those rocks right now, just barely bumping it, barely reeling it. This is the wintertime fishing, folks. You're not going to sit there and crank them in. You know, I was out here the other day and I couldn't catch a crankbait fish. I couldn't catch a spinnerbait fish. You know, all I could catch them on was these just jigs, brush hogs, you know, and I've got some brush hogs here too. We may have to try that, you know. You know, another thing is you won't feel the bite. Very seldom you'll feel the bite. And usually a jig bite is the best feeling because it's like thump, you know. But what they do is they'll just either barely tick it or it'll feel like you just fell off of a rock, you know, and it just kind of rolled off. That's what it feels like. So if I pull it just a little, then I give it a little slack and let it sit there. If it's just sitting there and something happens, that's my bite. Set the hook. There it is. There it is. It's coming in. You know, I'm not real deep, folks, so I'm just gonna, oh, he's coming out. Oh boy. Not a giant fish, but just a Bartlett Lake bass, you know. Just a nice little jig fish, you know. Little fat one, 1.5 pounds. Right there on the top. So, boy, are these cold. Woo! The water temperature is 50 degrees. Look how fat they are. They're all fat. So let's let this little guy go. There he goes. All right, so you can catch a number of fish on these jigs. I know they're expensive. I'm using Yamamoto. I also use chompers. I also use Bass Pro Shop. Those are a little bit, couple bucks a bag cheaper, you know, so. Remember, just throw it out. I lift my rod up and I watch my line going down, you know, going down, going down. I'm only in 15 feet of water, folks, so I'm not like, it's not, it'll drop off after we go down the lake a little ways. So I'm on the bottom, I let it sit there. I always let it sit there for a few seconds, you know. I haven't been catching hardly any big fish. No 2.5, 3 pounders or nothing. Every once in a while I get a 2.5, 3 pounder, but most of them are just small like that, you know. Just, you're bored at home, you haven't fished all winter long, you want to come out, you know. We didn't come out real early. We had to wait because we had a little bit of a rain delay. So we're just fishing here in the afternoon. So I'm just pulling that along, just dragging it nice and easy. Occasionally look at the graph, you know. Just trying to bump one in the head, you know. When I do see one, they're just way down on the bottom. Oh. So remember that when you cast out, 95% of them, if there's a fish close by, he's gonna see that lure sink. Be ready to set that hook, and you're not gonna feel a strong bite. Sometimes when I'm dragging it like this, all I feel is just pressure, just like you hooked onto a plastic bag. You know, it's just heavy. One way to combat that, you know, is if you don't know you got a bite. I made a video, is that a rock or is that a fish, you know? Or one way to do that, if you think you got a bite, just start reeling like this. If your rod goes over, starts bending, set the hook. And I mean set it hard, pretty hard. Don't be too wimpy about setting it, you know. So we're just kind of drifting a little bit with the wind, just real slow. There's a few fish on the ground here. Just casting it out, nice and easy. Just a ½ ounce goes really far. You don't have to sling these things. These reels are so smooth like this. You just throw it out, let that baby sink down to the bottom. You know, like I said, wintertime, you would think there's a lot of fish in 30, 35 feet of water, but I can't catch them. I tried. I spent 2 hours out here Friday trying to catch them. I couldn't do it. I had to come back in, and you know, almost all my fish are coming from 15 to 20, 25. You know, if I had to pick a magic number. So be sure when you cast it, after you cast it out, follow your line down, take up your slack, and as you start to pull it, if it's heavy and you don't know if you're stuck or if you have a bite, 95%, you know, the fish had followed it down. He ate it as soon as it got to the bottom, because they could see, you know, 5 times greater than us, so they could see at large distances. This is the clearest the water is going to get right now. You can probably see 2, 3 feet down, you know. So we'll give this a little bit more, and then I want to show you about Texas rigging jigs, okay? Because we don't have a lot of time out here today, you know. Actually, the rain kind of dissipated a bit. Threw it out. Now I'm holding my rod up. It's sinking, sinking, sinking. You know, 15 feet, it gets down there pretty quick. All right, so I got to the bottom. I'm just gonna take up my slack, hold my rod up like this, let it sit there for a second, just kind of jiggle it in case there's a bass watching it. If there is, bam, he's gonna take it. Jig fishing is really fun, you know. I love jig fishing. I love Texas rigging baits, you know. Seems like everybody I talk to, you know, they'd rather drop shot or something if you're a new beginner and stuff, but I like that Texas rigging, just bouncing on the bottom, just bouncing on these rocks out here. That's where you're gonna catch them, you know, out here on this rocky shoreline. Sometimes I'll see them on the graph, folks, and I'll see them down there and I'll just hurry up and reel up and I'll drop right down. Sometimes I can catch them, you know. There's a bump. Okay. All right, here he comes. You know, let me just tell you, if you catch these fish deep, reel them in slow because they get the bends. If you throw them back in right away, you know, here he comes. See, I could see him down there about 3 feet. So that means a bass can see your lure 15 feet away. And it's cloudy, so you know, you just can't see. Oh, there's the sun. Hey, sun's coming out. Once you get them coming, just keep them coming. That's just a little bit bigger. But more than likely, folks, you're gonna catch the fish right in the top of the mouth right there. That's usually a spot for, and it comes right out, you know. But you can see that looks like a crawdad to him. That's what he's eating. There are no crawdads right now on the bottom, really. They're hibernating. They're in hibernation. Pretty bass. Nice and cold. All right, little guy. We'll let you go nice and easy. Whoa. Yeah, he was in a hurry, wasn't it? While I'm down on my knees like this, let me show you something. Let's Texas rig. We caught 2 fish. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're going to take quarter ounce tungsten. This is a green pumpkin. I'm gonna put this on just like a Texas rig. 1/0 hook. Go in the top, come out 1/4 inch, slide that up onto, yeah, that little keeper part of the hook, the little notch there. Push it down till you get in there. Now, this is just like a worm or a brush hog. Just put it right in the tail end of that. Push it right into the meat of this. I'm feeling the hook right there. I'm stuck. I got a bobber stopper on there. 1/4 ounce tungsten weight. You can see that right there. So we're going to put that down on there. This is just a little green pumpkin. This rod is a medium. Johnny Morris medium, 7 feet 1 inch, fast tip. I'm only using a 1/4 ounce. This is the one I brush hog with. But same thing, I'm just gonna throw a jig on there. I'm just gonna throw it out nice and easy. You know, they're not up on the bank, remember, so why do I wanna waste my time? You know, I imagine there's a few on the bank, but in a month I haven't caught a fish shallower than 10 foot or 12 foot. Probably somebody that watches this has, but anyway, it hit the bottom. I'm fishing this the same as I do a football head. Exactly the same. So we're just gonna go along here. We're just gonna bounce this over the rocks, just same way. Now I'm gonna get more filling out of this tungsten than I am a piece of lead, 1/2 ounce lead. But I'm just, you know, I hit the trolling motor and I'm just going real slow and I'm just bouncing that right over these rocks, you know. And these are all just rocks this big around, you can see there. Now up here, those great big old boulders, that's where you can catch some fish. You can catch them up there, you know, the ones that are in the water, just throwing over the top of them and bringing it down, letting it fall over. So let's just reel this up, throw it out, hold my rod up, let that bait go to the bottom. It's gonna go down 15 feet, 14, 15 feet. Sinking, sinking. You know, whenever your line is, you know, sinks and it gets on the bottom, you'll have a bow in there and it'll lay on top of the water. That's the slack there. Now actually, with a tungsten, I'm gonna say this, you don't get stuck. You get stuck about 50% less than an open head jig. And the jig, the open head jig, you don't get stuck that much, but you do a lot more. So you can just work this along the rocks like this, nice and slow. Now, as the day warms up, if the sun was out, the fish warm up just a little bit too, and they'll bite a little bit better. So we're just gonna work this along. There's one right on the bottom. Watch this. Watch this. There's one on the graph. I don't know if David's seeing the graph right there. See that, David, right there? That's a fish.
Let me get a shot of that.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna catch him. I'm stripping line out. I'm down. Down on the bottom. Now I'm gonna drop it right on his head, and I'm just gonna leave it there. We're right on the top of him. Line's heavy. There it is. Boy, he was right under the boat, right on the ground. I told you that sometimes that happens. This is one of them. It doesn't happen all the time, but you know, sometimes it does, maybe about 35% of the time. All right, this is Texas rigging a Yamamoto. Now this is Texas rigging, and I said Yamamoto, but it's not a Yamamoto. It's a Chompers. Chompers makes double tail jigs. They're about $2 a pack less. Bass Pro Shop carries them. I just bought them last night. So you can see that the jig, let me get this all straightened out. This thing is the same thing. I mean, it's the same jig. Look at that. Green pumpkin, Texas rigged. Looks good up against him, huh? So, all right, let's let this guy go. Boy, he take off. All right. Remember I said, well, naturally it's gonna slide off the hook like this because, you know, it's Texas rigged. All you gotta do is go back up on that little thing right there, slide the jig back up there, just like a rubber worm or a brush hog. All right. Turn the jig, go back in the tail, just like that. Ta-da! There it is. Looks just like what we were using with the open face, the open hook, you know, the football head, doesn't it? But I bet you out of 100 casts, I probably would get stuck, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 times with the other one. And this one, I might not get stuck at all. But you're gonna like doing this. You get just the same bites, you catch the same fish. It's still jig fishing, just with a Texas rig. And you get to use a tungsten, you know, if you use tungsten. Now some guys buy football heads and they're made of tungsten. Kitech makes them. But that jig and that tungsten weight, you're paying $5.50 for one jig hook, you know. So let's, well, there's some more under the graph. What's the chances of doing that again, you know? Oh, here's another one. That's a bass right there. That's how those things just lay right on the bottom. Hang on, I got 2 of them coming over right now, and I got my jig right there. There's a bump. It's either a rock or fish. I'm gonna reel, set the hook. There he is. Here he comes. I don't know, folks. The odds of having 2 in a row like that, you know, boy, they fight, but man, in this cold water, look at that. He's trying to move around, but probably a little bit. You know, I'm going to keep him coming towards me. That's a fatty. He weighed just a little bit more. You can tell by lifting him up. Oh boy. Uh-oh. Look at this, guys. One good eye over there. One bad eye on this side. I don't know if he got a hook in there or what, but it's kind of swelled up. Yeah, he lost that eye. It didn't just happen now, but you know, I always look down the middle of the crushers down there, and I look for crawdads down there. For a month now, I haven't seen any crawdad pinchers, so, whoops. Whoa, almost lost him. That's the one thing I hate to do, is let that fish roll on the carpet. The reason is that fish loses his slime, and I can't tell you how many biologists have been on my boat and say every time you drop a fish on the carpet, you're going to use slime, you're going to lose the slime on there off that fish. He has a chance of getting ick or a disease and 50% chance of dying. So if you catch a fish and you don't want to save him, you know, you're not going to eat this size or something, try not to let him hit the carpet because they could end up dying anyway. So we'll let that little guy go. All right, folks. Now you got two ways to fish a jig. One with the football head, one with the Texas rig.